Yeah, I don't think any of us are special by any means. And I think you got to listen to short term podcast, every single day. I don't think I missed a day of listening to your podcast or going on your Facebook page, but feed your mind with positives. And I was like, I really love your success story podcast because I want to hear that. I want to know that I can do that. And I will say that anyone can do this. Anyone. I don't care what your skill set is. I don't care if you have no money, but you have to put work in. We're flooded. July is the best month we've ever had. We have completely rebounded and are making more money than we did pre-COVID.
This is episode number 67 of the Short-Term Rental Success Stories podcast. Are you an investor that's looking to have your home professionally managed? Go to cohostit.com for more information. Welcome back to Short-Term Rental Success Stories. I'm your host, Julian Sage. This is a show where I talk to hosts about their journeys in starting and growing their short-term rental business. My goal is that you'll be able to walk away with practical information that'll help you become a better host and learn how to scale your business. Like any exceptional host, we all strive for 5-star reviews, so please go on over to iTunes and let us know what you enjoy, as it really helps support the show. If you haven't done so already, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation, to connect with the community. Hey, what is going on, Host Nation? I'm super excited to be back again with you this week. So for those of you that have been following this show for a while now, you probably know that I really love the whole model of co-hosting. Co-hosting, for those of you that don't know, is a way of being able to manage other people's properties. One of the concepts that we talk about frequently on the show is rental arbitrage or master lease investing, as well as co-hosting and buy and hold investing. Together, we call this the RCB model of short-term rental investing. What I love so much about how this show has really kind of progressed is that not just looking at the short-term rentals and management company as a way of being able to do a business, because as you follow this show, you'll probably notice that there's a lot of people that are able to make a full-time living by managing other people's properties, but to also look at this from an investor standpoint. When we talk about master lease investing, we are talking about being able to acquire a property without having to put a lot of money down and then being able to turn that into a profit. We also talk about being able to purchase properties and then after renting them out short term, being able to make a profit. But you can also manage other people's properties and make a profit. And how you're able to blend all these different models of using short-term rentals. You can incorporate this with things like real estate, which is actually something that I've been using more frequently, such as being able to help investors acquire and purchase these short-term rental, vacation rental properties, and then us being managers, being able to manage the properties for them. So there's a lot of different ways that you can provide service by being a short rental manager and using these different models of investing. We're not saying that there's one model of investing better than the other. There's risk involved when you are purchasing a property and turning it into a short-term rental. There's risk involved when you are master leasing or doing rental arbitrage. But one of the models that I love so much is co-hosting, because there really isn't that much risk involved, because you're just really using your time to be able to help other people make money. And if you have the skill set in being able to analyze a property in a market and able to give them an accurate estimate on how much they'd be able to make if they do decide to purchase or master lease a property, it's a very useful skill set to have. Last week, I mentioned Vrolio and the tool that they've been creating, and I'm really excited for them because I believe that the future of short-term rental investing is being able to look at these residential properties and being able to turn them into short-term rentals. Vacation rentals have been around for a long time, but the residential short-term rental is really a newer concept. The more urban short-term rental manager is a very new breed, which is why co-hosting and our company Cohosting is very unique. If you're interested in short-term rental investing and you want to keep up to date with properties that do become available that are residential or vacation rentals, then go to shorttermsage.com/investor to join our email list, where we'll be sending a weekly email with properties that do become available. This is something that I'm really excited about, and being able to work with Vrolio and joining their team, being able to help promote and look at a lot of properties that typically people would not consider as a short-term rental actually being very profitable businesses. Today, I had the honor of speaking with Peter Plourde, owner of Conway Property Management. Peter has 2 properties that he owns and 8 properties that he co-hosts, all in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Peter started his property management business and in 1 month scaled from 2 properties that he owned to now co-hosting 8 properties, so 10 properties total. In this episode, Peter shares a story of how he first got into short-term rentals and how he's been able to scale to managing other people's properties and even growing his business during COVID-19. If you like my show notes for this episode, go to shorttermsage.com/STR67. Or if you like my show notes sent directly to your inbox every week, then go to shorttermsage.com/show notes. With all that being said, on to this week's conversation. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation, to another episode of Short-Term Rental Success Stories. In this episode, I have the special honor of speaking with my good friend, Peter Plourde. Peter, would you please introduce yourself to the Host Nation and let them know who you are and what inspired you to get into short-term rentals?
Yeah, sure, Julian. My name is Peter Plourde. I've been in the hospitality business for, seems like my whole career, 30 years, in restaurants. And we've been coming up here where we live now, in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. And we decided a year ago to purchase our first vacation rental, honestly, to save some money on taxes at the time. And when we were looking into it, I was listening to podcasts like yourself and a bunch of others, trying to gain all the knowledge that I could. And for a while, I was like, well, maybe we should buy one in Orlando. I did the whole Airbnb thing. And then my wife was like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to go someplace that we know, that we've been going to for years, because we're in a ski town. So we've been coming up here. We brought our kids up here, to ski and to go to Storyland. There's a little amusement park up here. So we finally, she won. We settled up here and we bought our first property back in September of 2019. Then we bought a second one, but the first one really, when you first buy a property, you're so nervous and you're like, oh my God, what happens next? And, I just submerged myself into learning at that point, listen to YouTube videos, all the experts, whether it was rental arbitrage, all that stuff. I absorbed everything I could. I read that guy's book that you had on, Daniel Restine, I think his name is, which really kind of changed my whole perspective on how to operate an Airbnb. And then, we launched it and it took off and did amazing. So then we're like, I want to get another one. And I was lucky to have, some funds stashed away in the stock market. I pulled the money out for that. And then we ran them kind of long distance, 2.5 hours, 3 hours away. My wife was running up here to do cleanings. We had no cleaners. I would go up and help. So then we found a couple of great cleaners locally. And then over the next, I'd say 6 months, decided we're going to move up here full time. And then the goal is to transition to full-time property management up here, vacation rental management. So then I actually bought my URL before I even had anything, decided upon. I just was like, I'm going to buy North Conway Property Management, and hopefully I'll need it someday. Hopefully I'll be able to use it. And then right after that, I created an LLC in the same name without having any dollars coming in or anything. So I was like, I feel like this is going to happen, and I had trust and faith in the process.
What's really, inspiring about your story, Peter, is like I saw you like right when you started. You reached out, you were very active in the Facebook group, the Host Nation, and so much so that I was like, I just wanted to jump on a call with you to just kind of thank you for being such a good member of the community. And to see you be able to scale up. I remember when I first talked to you, you had that one property and you were just kind of getting it set up and ready to launch. And I was like, yeah, definitely want to have you on the show once you kind of scaled up. And here we are just a few months later, and it's like, man, Peter's crushing it. So I want to go back because you have some experience in the hospitality industry, but in restaurant ownership. Did you feel that being a restaurant owner really kind of helped you, or do you feel like anybody, it wasn't really so much the hospitality background, but more because you were diving in and really consuming during that learning period?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think the hospitality side definitely helps, but I think what's more important is getting learning and getting learning from people that have done it before you, and not resting on any kind of knowledge background that you might have. Because we're not serving guest food, we're not waiting on tables, we're not all those skill sets definitely help me, as probably other people have skill sets that help them. But really what was more important was just learning as much as possible, before, during, and after your first property launch, and then, it's funny. It's so surreal to be on this call because, yeah, I listened to every single episode of yours. And then I'm now on listening to them again, and everything that I've picked up, I would say, is a benefit of listening to your podcast. Whether it was Julie talking about how she pays people, and then, never mind the last episode where she sold her business, and that just blew my mind. But there, other, way back, what's her name? I think it was Erica Muller. She talked about your Porter app, and that was a game changer for me early. But here's something really interesting. You talk about growth. On June 7th, I have this notebook right here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but on June 7th, I wrote some goals down. And my number one, we use a listing kind of keep track of your thoughts app. And number one was new client acquisition, because my daughter Hannah built our website, North Conway Property Management, and we built it to kind of bring in clients, not to get bookings. And I tied a little Google ad to it. It talks about kind of cleanings and that we live here. And I was like, I have no idea if this is going to work. I just let it sit out there. So on June 7th, I wrote down some goals, and here they are. Next 3 months, I want to get to 5 properties. So by September, I want to get to 5 properties. I had 2.
And just to clarify, this is June 7th of this year. So just like last month.
This year, correct. And then my next 6 months, or the end of the year, I wanted to get to 8 properties, and 10 was my stretch goal. And then I worked the numbers backwards to figure out what kind of income that could generate. And if I'm doing my math correct, it's a 6-figure income. So as we sit today, we are at 11 units, 9 clients that we're going to co-host, property manage, and 2 that we own. My goal is to purchase one in the next by the end of the year, and then purchase another one, and then potentially, retire from my primary job, and then do this full time, because I don't want to retire, basically.
Peter, I thought you said that you weren't going to share that.
I know, but whatever. I think I'm like Julie, Julie just talks.
Yeah, she just spills the beans.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's something about the show. People just confess their inner secrets to us. But no, that is really something. So June of just like beginning of this month, we're recording this June 29th. You said, how many properties did you have? You had 2. You had just the 2 that you owned?
The 2 that we owned. Yeah, they're doing extremely well. We've never had less than a 5-star review. I give all that credit to my wife, Julia. She's insane with cleaning. And, we put a snack basket out like most people that are good at this do. We write a handwritten note every single time. We now use Hostfully as a digital guidebook, which has been really good. Automatic door locks, all that kind of stuff is there. But 100% response rate. Obviously, you can't be a super host without all those check boxes getting checked off. So 100% response rate, all the visits that you need, and then 5-star reviews. We've never had less than a 5-star review.
So that's some pretty exponential growth from 2 properties that you own to now managing 11 in a month. How is that even possible?
Well, the good news is, like, they're all kind of coming online, spread out a little bit. So I'll give you how it first started. My website that I talked to you about, all of a sudden I got an email. I remember this clearly. It was I don't even know what day it was, but it was after June 7th. And it was a person asking me to manage their condo. I kind of was like, holy crap, like here we go. I didn't think this was going to happen, because you never know, here's the thing. And I hope listeners can understand this. Like, I'm a real person. I think sometimes when I listen to the show, you're not quite sure, like, are they really real? Like, this really happened to them? This is their story. And I really want everyone to understand, like, this is true life. This is my story. And I'm not exaggerating anything. I'm being transparent, because I really want people to be successful. So her name, I won't use her real name, but let's call her Debbie. I ended up calling her right then. And she filled out our form on our line. So I had her cell phone, her email, all that stuff. So she never listed her condo before. I called her, set up an appointment. Me and Julia went over to her condo. We had a little meeting. Her sons were there, who are both in college, and they started rifling questions at us like, how long have you been doing this? And, I just kind of like, not that I was vague, but I just kind of answered the best we could. We kind of walked out of the meeting, felt like we had her, like it was going to happen. And I'm like, oh man, I wish we didn't say that, or I wish we didn't say that. And then she then emailed me back. We were trying to get 25% for our fee. She was kind of balking at that, so we settled on a different fee, which still makes sense for me. And that was it. But here's the funny story about her is that then she went silent on us. And in the meantime, we got someone else that signed up, and they were like instant, like signed our contract. We did what we did for her, and that's a different story, which is really kind of funny too, that I'll share. But then this person, Debbie, went silent. Then we went to like 5 properties, 5 clients, I mean. And then all of a sudden I get a text from her out of the blue. Hey, Pete, just want to let you know we haven't forgotten. Hope you haven't forgotten about us. I'm refinancing my condo, and I want to wait till that's final before we go live. So it was like, all right, so we didn't screw it up, and she's still with us. And but now we have 11, So I want to tell one more story because I think it's pretty interesting. So the second person, or the first person that actually signed up, she called for cleaning. And I feel like a lot of my calls, people want cleanings, or they want, they want us to bridge a gap or something. COVID, when it hit up here, we had to shut down our rentals. And I think a lot of our owners that were getting their cleaning companies just dissolved. So they're calling me for cleaning. So this lady called me for a cleaning. It was a big condo, and I started talking. I gave her my little elevators pitch that I didn't know I had. And she's like, I really want professional pictures. She's like, I have a guest coming in 3 days. I was like, well, I'll stop by and I'll get you professional pictures. And if you choose us, they're free. But if you don't, it's $200. It's really a good value. And she's like, okay, great. So my wife, myself, my daughter, Hannah, who works in our company, and her boyfriend, Richard, who's our photographer, we all go over to her condo. And we walk in, and the first thing we see is a hole in the ceiling. And I'm like, oh gosh. So we go upstairs, and it's beyond words. There's like a table with all the hot tub chemicals laid out. The fridge is full of food, like half eaten, just amazing amount of food in this fridge, like it's been lived in. And they have right now I know there's a guest coming tomorrow. I start texting her pictures, and I just said, look, we can't take pictures today. I don't know if you're going to pick us or not. I don't care. I feel like an obligation to your guests. Can I clean out your fridge? She's like, oh, please, would you? 4 trash bags later, we're now scrubbing the whole place. In the bathroom is a bar of soap on a hand towel with a razor next to it. And it was laid out for the guest. So I'm like, take a picture of that. Can I get rid of that? Can we just put some little soap and, shampoo and body wash out? She's like, of course. Can I get rid of it? Can I put all your chemicals in a tub and put them in the garage? Of course. It went on and on. An hour and a half later, and then the next day, actually, I went back and weed whacked their little fire pit area because it was like overgrown and, up to your knees in weeds. And I'm like, can I just go and do that for you? Are you okay? She's like, of course, this is unbelievable that you're doing this for us. I'll pay you. And I'm like, don't worry about it. I just feel when I walk into a house, whether it's mine or someone else's, I feel like I own it. And I want to take that responsibility on right away, especially with you having a guest coming tomorrow. So, and anyway, long story short, she signed up. And we actually shut the unit down after her guest for the rest of June. And my wife actually ended up spending a decent amount of money to remodel it, get new linens in there. We put new door lock on. We put a smart things hub in, a Ring doorbell, all that stuff that we include in what we do for free if they sign up with us. So July 1st, we launch. Her whole calendar's booked, and everything's good now. But that was a wild first day, I'll tell you.
I think there's so much to really kind of digest in that. For the people that are listening, it's like, this isn't, that's really kind of your that's a quintessential of this type of business, is like you're taking something that is, other people don't really know how to do. Like, was this person, were they trying to manage this remotely, or did they have a property manager already in place that just didn't know how to do it? Like, what was the situation with this property?
They're from about 3 hours away. They have another Airbnb which they manage themselves on the ocean. It's in Rhode Island, and what happened was their cleaner basically was like, "This is too much," and I quit. So they really desperately needed a cleaner. So that's what started it. And then once I told them what we do and how we do it, and I have like a 9-10 page information packet that we'll send out, which basically talks about owner responsibility, our 54-point cleaning checklist, all that stuff in a packet. And then we talk through it with them. And then, once she saw that, she's like, "This is, I'll talk to my brothers," because there's like 3 people on the deed, but they were like all in at that point. What's
Right.
I got another quick little story if you don't mind.
Go for it.
This so the next call came in from this gentleman, and he's an attorney out of Boston, very, very like, dun, 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 kind of person, and he called me and he's like, "I need a bridge. I need someone to bridge my gap." And I'm like, "Okay, what does that mean?" And he goes, "Well, I'm going with this company, and they're a nationwide company. I don't want to say their name." And he was in the process of firing another nationwide company. And what he wanted us to do, because that other nationwide company already had built-in cleaners, built-in people on the ground, but they were not I mean, they were like ready to sue these people. That's how angry they were. And we had a long talk. I ended up saying, "I understand what you want, but I'll tell you what we do. And here's why I think you should choose us over them." And by the end of the conversation, he was all in. And we were going to have another conference call basically the next day with his wife, who's they don't want, like, I'll give you an example. They don't want any kind of chemicals used on their cleaning, on their laundry, whatever. They want it all natural. And that's what my wife uses anyway. So it was like, oh, so then that call led to me and my wife going over to their home, which is beautiful. It's going to kill it. And we're in the process of bringing them on right now. But it was started off as, "I want you to just do this because I already have this and they're cheap. And I figure I got nothing to lose. So, maybe we'll get fired next, but I don't think so." And then my last call was this guy, Bob, and he just wanted cleaning because literally he has a turn on July 3rd, and their cleaner basically said, "I'm done," and gave him no notice. He has 15 turns in the next 2 weeks that he needs done. So I get on the phone with him and I kind of tell him what we do. He gets all excited. He sends me the link to his property. Oh, by the way, he filled his property 330 days out of 365 last year. And when I looked at his link, I was like, "I know your house," because I don't know if you do this, but I go in incognito mode and I Google my town on Airbnb, and I see where my rankings are, because you always want to be on the first page, right? So I look at he's always been number one. He's like that thorn in your side, like this guy that just, how does he do it? He has 130, awesome reviews. He's making a ton of money. His 100% response rate. And I was like, "Well, Bob, why you don't even need me? You're killing it. You're number one on the first page every single time." And he's like, "I don't want to do this anymore." He's like,
Mm.
I'm like, "What software are you using?" He goes, "I don't use a software. I just respond." And he owns his own company, and he's 3 hours
Wow.
away. So it's like, by the end of the conversation, he was all in. He signed the contract actually this morning. But we took over the cleaning fees. He wants us to manage his hot tub, which I've never done. I'm like, "All right, here's what I think it's going to cost. So that's an added, revenue stream for us as long as we don't screw up the hot tub. But yeah.
Wow, that's Peter, so one of the unique things that you said was you created this website. Was this website specifically targeted for property managers or as a property management company in your area, or was it advertised as a clean? Like how are you getting all of these leads?
Yeah. So that's it's the funny thing is that the site, remember when I said at the beginning I didn't know if it was going to do anything. It's generating probably a phone call every other day for the last 2 weeks, of people wanting something. So um, my vision for it was, it is specific to our market. So I bought the URL North Conway Property Management. North Conway is the main town up here. And I bought that URL and I actually named our company after it. So, but what I actually did was I put a little Google ad on it, and it literally, I think I'm spending maybe $20 a month. And when you search for it, it shows up above like the Google ad would, because no one else is putting a Google ad.
Right,
No one else is advertising for that specific search.
right.
So yeah, so all these people are finding us. We show up on the map. They see that we live here, and they're calling me mostly for cleaning. And then once they talk to me, they then become full clients.
But are you like advertising like specifically like, hey, we're a cleaning company, or is it I'm a property management company and this is one of the services that we offer, which is cleaning?
Yeah, mostly the first thing, well, we're a property management company, but if you do look at it, it says like contact us page. I do have a cleaning only section. So I think that's kind of like triggering because they're desperate for a cleaner. And but the other thing that I really have learned this month is that there's not a lot of talent in the space.
Hmm.
So if you bring just some good skills, like one person was like, no one even called me back. Like they here. I forgot about this person. So they were. So she sends me the link to her property, and their actually only advertisement is Craigslist, and they probably have 6 bookings, and they've normally rented out the winter to a long-term tenant at a very, like, I think it was $1,500 a month. So once we started talking and what we do, and she needed a cleaner again, they signed up like right away. We're doing a deep clean there today. Actually, my wife is, because we have to get it ready.
Are you like a website whiz or like a
Oh
an
no,
ads guru, or like what are you doing, Peter?
that's like the funniest thing I think I've heard in a while. So we built it on GoDaddy. My daughter Hannah built it. She has her own virtual assistant business that she's kind of building now, and she kind of did it. I did it. We worked on it, tweaked it. I feel like we're still tweaking it, but it literally anyone can do it, honestly. What I didn't know when we did it was that it was going to actually generate the leads it's generating. So now in my mind is like, I think almost we could do it anywhere in the country. If I have the right person on the ground, because I have all the software system kind of built for communication, pricing, all that good stuff, channel management. So yeah, I honestly think if you get the right URL in the town that you're local to, it's going to do the same thing for anyone out there.
Man, Peter, talking with you just excites me more because it's like there's so much potential in the space that I want the people that are listening to this, because you've picked up on this probably from listening to all the podcasts, and you're doing it yourself. Like when I created my first website, it was super simple. It was just like very specific to the DC area. It was like Airbnb, vacation rental property management. I used just keyword heavy. I didn't even have any ads running, and someone filled out a form, and that was my first client.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because there's not many people. Like how many people in your area are doing this?
Yeah, no one else shows up. What else? When you put that search in, the only people that show up are actually property managers that don't do vacation rentals. So I'm like the only one. And then there is, I'm in a vacation rental market. I will say that. Like there's, you do an Airbnb search, there's 400 that show up. We're in a mountain town. We're in a kind of a resort town, which is kudos to my wife for picking it. So I will say that. But there's the other major vacation rental company is called something that no one will search for. So I feel like it was a good name because it does fit up here. But unless a client specifically searches for that, they don't find them. So they're all finding me. And then I think there's some of the bigger companies are I think they were built with good intentions, and I think it was a great model. But now I think they're really starting to struggle because I think they grew too big, and it's hard for them to kind of do what they do, especially through the COVID thing with cleaners. You know, getting furloughed. We had to furlough our couple cleaners, and luckily they're coming back. But with I forget when the governor shut us down as a state, but he didn't open us back up to June 5th. But
Right.
the good news is, for short-term rentals, is that if you're in a drivable location, people aren't flying to Disney right now. They're not going for those big vacations. We're flooded. July is the best month we've ever had. We've completely rebounded and are making more money than we did pre-COVID.
Wow. That is crazy. So, one of the things, like, there's a lot of people that are probably listening to this that are afraid of, the market and where it's at. They say now's not a good time, or I'm going to hold off. But you're saying it's the other way. Right now you're actually increasing your business because
Mhm.
there's people that are desperate, and you're actually making more money now because of why right now is this doing so well for you?
Yeah, I think the whole pandemic shook the industry up a little bit. I think those cleaning companies, if they were running on small margins, saw all their income go away. Or they're sitting home on unemployment, and it doesn't make sense for them to go back to work yet. So I honestly did not know this was going to be the ideal time, but I don't know. It's hard to say without armchair quarterbacking it later if this does make is this the reason, or would have happened anyway. I'm not sure. All I do know is that my biggest concern at the moment is am I is it can I grow at this level, like,
Mm.
so initially 10 by the end of the year. Well, I'm already past that. So my biggest concern now is like, all right, what do we need to do to get to 50? I think 100's in the ballpark too. And obviously, we're going to go through some pain and suffering to get there. But I think now is the perfect opportunity for people to launch their own business.
Amen. Yeah, right. It's right now when things are shaken up. It's like, there was so much growth, there was so much interest in the space, and like when you came into the space, like that was like coming towards the peak of like when
Mm.
everybody was just getting very excited. But then, all of a sudden it was just decimated. People got scared, people were selling their properties, people were, going to long-term rentals. But it's like you see, and I feel like it's the people that were kind of like towards that tail end also, like if you weathered the storm and you kind of saw through it, if you made it through those months, which was definitely intimidating for a lot of people, it's like now you're kind of coming out the other end and you're like, wow, this is like a new plane, and it's a new market. Like, I can come in and I can be the first, I can be the, that top guy in the search. And now there's actively people reaching out to you and trying to work with you, because they don't want to deal with it. It's like, all these people had these properties and they were just getting cancellations, dealing with cleaners that were dropping left and right. And here you are, just kind of like the last man standing, saying like, hey, I'll help you out. Like, I'll go to your house and weed whack your place for you because nobody else is going to do it.
Mhm.
Like, it's interesting. And even for us, like we're growing co-host it, and we just picked up a couple properties in Pensacola during this time. But yeah, it's a real thing. Like, cleaners and trying to grow that cleaning team is very challenging. Like, in the past week, we've had to go through like two different people. Like, it was a much larger company that had cleaners, and it just wasn't that good. And then another person. So it's definitely a struggle. So what are you doing to be able to ensure that all of your properties are taken care of with your cleaning teams? Or how are you not having the same issues with that all of these other people are having?
Yeah. The first thing before I answer that, and I want to say that I think this business, especially if you do it from a co-hosting model, there's no big upfront cost. Like I had, in the middle of my life, failed at a business because I was a franchise. I leveraged my house. We almost went bankrupt. It was, 250 grand. So you can start a co-hosting model for, gosh, really peanuts. So I don't know if there's any other business quite like it. Now you can listen to the guys that are doing arbitrage, and obviously that works, but then there's upfront costs, and you have to leverage a little bit. Here, like if this property that we just listed, I just listed one last night, it books, I make money. It doesn't book, I don't lose money. So it's an unbelievable, I think, one of a kind business at the moment. So to answer your question, it's a pretty interesting answer that no one probably else will be able to give you. So in the White Mountains, there's actually huts up there. So like Mount Washington is the highest mountain on the East Coast. It's 6,200 feet. Well, there's a hut below it called Lake of the Clouds. And these huts are serviced by young, awesome people. And their task of managing this hut is to clean it, to cook for the guest, to clean up all the dishes, to sweep it, to do all that stuff, to make that experience awesome for the guest. Well, we were lucky enough to find two people that were a referral from my wife's sister who knew them her whole life, and they have been amazing. So through them, we have now tapped into that whole resource of people that do that. So how it works in the summertime is that they spend 7 nights up there, and then they hike off the mountain, and then they spend 7 days in town. So every other week, they can help our business part-time, which is perfect. Well, soon we're going to need full-timers, but, and then their off week gets filled by a different person. That's, because they're not on the same weeks. So we basically started to build our cleaning company within our own company through the hut system, which is really, it's been working out great. The other thing I am doing is I stole from Julie is a team leader concept where I'm already started. I was going to wait until I hit 10 or 11 units, but I decided to launch it now. And it's basically her philosophy of sharing a percentage of your earnings with someone who is a very skilled, qualified cleaner, or turnover specialist is probably a better word for a cleaner, that can write the handwritten note, that can manage the properties, that's really good at communication. So I've decided to give 2 different people on our team that title and those responsibilities, and I'm training them now while we're still somewhat small. And then we're going to grow them each, so they'll have like their own little section of houses, and then we share in the profits, or the revenues, I should say.
Yeah, that was a great episode. And for those of you that are listening to that and just like, what is this? Go back and listen to shorttermsage.com/STR30. That was with Julie George when she first came on the show and kind of shared her model of how she grew her management company, which was pretty unique, using this team lead. Definitely, it's something that even we're still today playing around with, like, as you grow, it's like, how can you have other people that are responsible, so that it's not just like, a cleaner, and more of a person that's a, vital member of the team, because they are a vital member of the team and they should be compensated as such. But how do you give them some more responsibility, make them feel like it's more inclusive, so that, takes some of the workload off of you. And that way you're not just saying, hey, I've just got, cleaners in the area. No, it's like, I've got a property manager. They manage these properties. I just help supervise them and make sure that they are, and meanwhile they have the cleaning experience, and they, their attention to detail. So it's a great model. Definitely, excited to see you implementing that as well. I think you're actually the first person that said on the show that you're kind of going to be moving forward with that model. So. Hey, this is Julian, and I wanted to be able to give you our newest book, Airbnb Secrets Revealed, How to Build a Fortune on Airbnb Without Owning Property. In this book, we talk about the concepts of rental arbitrage investing, as well as co-hosting, and how you can build a business leveraging other people's properties. This book is perfect for the new short-term rental investor, and it's something that I wish that I had when I first started, as it would have saved me a lot of trouble and helped me to understand how to be able to leverage the power of short-term rental investing in your own real estate portfolio. If you'd like to get our newest book completely for free, go to shorttermsage.com/free book. Now, back to the show. With growing, really, really quickly, that's no easy feat. You created the website, you had a form, they filled out the form, but then after that, like you said, there was people that were never hearing back from these other property managers. Can I walk a person that's just going through this for the first time through that client acquisition funnel, that process from, that first call to where you're, you have them furnished and you're, able to make a profit and get their listing online. What is that like? Is that something that came easy to you, or what was the learning curve on that like?
Yeah. What's funny is I just wrote that down today, this morning, because a lot of, my mistake. And you had another podcast where the person was like, yeah, I wrote my property management manuals or whatever she called them, right away. Well, and she likes doing it. Well, I'm not that person. So a lot of what I do is in my head, and I know that it needs to get out of my head. Hannah, my daughter, is very important part of our company. She does all my online kind of stuff, Instagram, all that good stuff. And she also helps kind of with that organization of my mind. So this morning I wrote that down, what you just said. So they come in and I'm going to make sure I use my notes here. So phone call or an email comes in, and if I'm like able to talk to them right away, I'll talk to them right away, because I think it's important. You have them there, So if it's just an email, I'll email them back, or Hannah will, and say, when's a good time to call? Can I get if we have enough of their information, we will send them one of our packets out, which basically explains what we do, what we require from the owner, and basically everything soup to nuts. So that way, when I get on the phone with them, they can have a good understanding of what that looks like. Then we meet them I try to meet them in person. Now, I don't meet everyone in person, but if I can, I do. I think it's important that they understand that we have feet on the ground. Now, if you're building a business and you're not in the town, that would have to be different, but not everyone cares about meeting me. We can do a video call like this. So after that, but we do want to see the property regardless. So I want to walk through their property. Then I send them a contract. I send them the contract just so they can look at it and mark it up, ask questions. And we do have, one of my clients was an attorney, and he actually helped me rewrite it. So I had originally my attorney do it, but he was more of like a long-term guy, didn't understand short-term. And then this attorney basically helped create what we have now. So it's interesting, the allies you make through your owner clients, and then let's say they say they want to come on board. So then something else happens at that point. If they have an existing listing, I know a lot of companies and a lot of people will just shut that listing down and then create their own Airbnb account, tag it to themselves, or however they want to do it. If they have an existing Airbnb and it's successful, I let them keep it. And I just become, I obviously have to give them like my bank account and that kind of stuff for splitting the cost and not the cost, but the fees. And then I put ourselves as the primary host. I then, and then I make sure what OTAs they're on. They go on my website, because we do get direct bookings from there. Let's see. I then, integrate them with all the software, because we use 3 different softwares at the moment. And then if they don't have an Airbnb account, some owners don't want anything to do with it. So I actually use my own account, or I create a new account just for them.
And what about if they don't have a property, like what's the process that you're doing? Because not every property is going to be maybe profitable, and maybe some of the people that are calling you, like I've seen, lots of people call, and it's just like, I don't really know if I'd want to even stay in a property like that. How are you analyzing these properties and making sure that, the owner's able to profit, you're able to profit, and that it makes sense as a working relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, until that hasn't really happened yet. Although that first one, the story I told about walking in and having to clean the fridge and all that stuff, in retrospect, well, I think it could be a good income producing property because it sleeps a lot of people and it's a nice setup and it's in a good spot. Um, and we did delay them. Um, I haven't really walked into a property yet that I wouldn't manage, but I know that's going to happen. So for now, yeah, I guess if I walked in and it wasn't where we needed to be, we would put something together that said this is what you need to do. Whether it's changing out furniture or putting the right decor in. A lot of the owners that we've met with, they have painstakingly created their home to look a certain way to make you feel good. And I think that's an important part for our guests is to walk in and feel a certain way, feel like I'm going to be, we're in a business of creating memories. That's what we're in the business for. And we want them to leave with their memories and this amazing experience. And we do capture their information on the first communication that we send after they book, because we want to, and it's tied to MailChimp for me, and they'll go on a mailing list and a newsletter. So yeah, I haven't really had to turn anyone down yet, but I know that's going to happen soon.
And what are you doing for making sure that the numbers work? Are you using any tools, or how are you coming up with your numbers?
Like, what am I charging them, or?
Oh, like what? How are you saying like, oh, this property should be priced at this point? This is compared to everybody else.
Yeah. So I do use Price Labs as my pricing tool for the nightly rate. I did try Wheelhouse, and I'm not saying that they're not good because I think they are. I just think at the time I was using them, I didn't understand the market real well. I was right at the beginning and I was running my one property. Now I totally understand nightly rates and what seasons is the peak and how much more we get on the weekends and all that stuff. But Price Labs to me is a game changer because it completely manages orphan days. It allows you to do certain things, whether you're building an aggressive approach or a non-aggressive approach. It gives you this on-screen thing that shows how booked you are in this next 7 days, next 30 days, next 45 days, and gives you kind of like a green, which is good, or a non-green color, which shows you have opportunities there. And I I was doing all my pricing manually and thinking I was doing pretty good, but Price Labs has changed the game. So I let Price Labs kind of go with it. But then I do look at it every single day. I'll pull up Price Labs and I'll pull up every property and I'll look at the prices and I'll make sure that I feel like it makes sense. Um, but it's been doing a really good job based on how many people we sleep and in the season. We're in the busiest season right now for us.
And what's your slow season like?
Yeah, that's a good question because COVID kind of hit, and I think we lost. Now, I only had two properties then. We probably lost 15 grand in bookings off those two. So supposedly June, May, and April is called mud season up here. You come out of the winter, which is ski season. The fall is when we have foliage up here. So you book almost completely on in the fall too. And then the winter, you get a lot of weekends. We just had someone book for 30 days in one of our properties, January 22nd to February 18th. I do get a lot of requests for that on VRBO. I don't know if we have a slow season anymore because it seemed like we were pretty well booked before
Nice.
COVID hit. So
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that like even we're because we're moving into a market like Florida and looking at like Arizona because it's for us in the DC area we have some pretty obvious peaks and valleys for our seasonality, but to look at like another like ski area or a place where it actually profits during that winter months, and we're thinking like Arizona and Florida just because it's hot, but like to also think like, okay, well, you can pick up some properties in, a very ski destination that maybe also has that good attraction, like you said, during the fall. That way you're kind of balancing your portfolio a little bit. I think that's a really good strategy.
my wife has, we got a real estate license up here. And we don't know anyone up here. So what we did was I actually placed like like an ad. Well, basically I bought a zip code on Zillow. And the first person so what that does is if someone's like looking for properties up here, her name shows up as a premier agent. I don't know if you know how that works, but so the first person to call, it goes to your phone, and the guy um, it gets on the phone with her, and he goes, yeah, I'm looking to buy an investment property up there. I don't know if you know what that short-term rental thing's all about, but I want to do that. And he keeps going on and on, like what he's looking for. And she's like, well, okay, let me just tell you what we do. And we
Mm.
own this company. It's called North Conway Property Management, and we help people just like you try to find a business that's, a property that can be successful. And, we have a date to meet with him soon, where he's going to come with property.
Love that. That is so exciting. So now you're taking the real estate, you're taking the property management, and man, that's again, that's the exciting aspect of this business is like people don't, you know, you're in a vacation destination. People are looking for properties as investments. But a traditional real estate agent where they're just maybe doing residential, or maybe they're not like a vacation rental specialist or a property manager, that they might not know as much as someone like you who's running the numbers, doing the business. You can give them actual figures, and you can say like, hey, like we can find you the perfect property, and this is exactly how much you're going to be able to make.
Mm-hmm.
That's really exciting. One of the exciting things with that is that you can actually also be a resource to other agents in your area. So like one of the things that we're doing like in Pensacola is we're actually going to, I'm reaching out to other real estate companies, brokerages, and saying like, hey, we do this service, which is running the numbers for you and helping you analyze these properties. Your agents, that maybe they don't know how to be able to, run the numbers. So it's like, send your properties over to us and we'll run the numbers for you for free. And,
Mm-hmm.
if they end up working with us, or they end up, referring us as a property manager, it's a win-win for us. So, that's some creative juice for you. But I did remember the thing that I wanted to ask. And what are some of the struggles what's the biggest struggle that you've seen along the way? Because you've been really growing rapidly. What are some of the big things that you're starting to see as you're scaling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the first thing was what software I'm using. And I honestly wasn't sure this was going to happen, and shame on me. I should have had more trust and faith after listening to so many podcasts that this can really happen here. But until it really happened for me, like came true, I didn't have really a plan or a strategy. I don't think completely to work backwards from where I thought and I still probably don't. But the first thing that I thought that going to break was the software that I was using, and I ended up making a $2,800 mistake. So I kind of, did probably what a lot of people do is I started Googling, PMSs, and got on a video call, got a presentation. It looked really awesome. And then when I got into it, some things started to happen that weren't good. They were double messaging my guest. There was just some weird stuff, and then I couldn't get great customer service. But I paid for the whole year, and in their policies was a no refund. So I actually bit the bullet, and now I think I do have a good plan for software. But I went on probably 6 informational video calls with different people that different, probably 6 different companies before I settled in on what this is. So that's number one. Cleaners will still be an issue for us, at some point. Or, one of the things we're trying to wrap our head around is like, how many units could a team leader manage? What is the number? And I don't know the answer to that yet. It might be 5, it might be 3, it might be 10. But at some point, you can't clean 10 units. So the team leader is getting not only a percentage of gross rent, they're getting the full cleaning fee. So they could outsource. We're paying $20 an hour for a cleaner. Figure 3 hours, they get the 150. They pay out 60. They're still netting 90. Part of that whole process too is they have to supply their own cleaning supplies, um, and they have to do the linens. So they have to figure out how they're going to do that. We don't have a linen company at the moment. I think linens could be a problem. Trash can be a problem too, because right now we run into the transfer station. So a good visual, our transfer station, water bottles go in this bucket, water bottle caps go
Oh
in that
no.
bucket. So picture Pete, the glamorous property manager, short-term rental owner, taking a 90 bottles of caps off.
Oh my goodness.
That's a real story that happened. So, yeah, but we're gonna have to figure that out because once you get to whatever number property, at some point trash might break. Our cleaners don't have they're not property owners. You need a property owner sticker to get to the transfer station. So we're gonna have to figure that out, and I don't have it completely figured out yet.
Right, but you're figuring it out because you have to. You have to
Yeah,
figure it out. All
it's
right.
called a pickup truck.
What would you do differently if you had to start from scratch? I mean, I know it wasn't too long ago, but like, when you first
Yeah.
started,
No,
what would it be?
yeah, I would plan to be big if that's what you want. So whatever you want, as what I want, I'm not sure the final number yet, but I would probably start with, I should have built a plan around 10 and understand what needs to happen at certain places. Now I don't know if you're going to figure it all out when you're first starting. I remember my first guest. I remember that first booking like it was yesterday, and you have the ring set up so you see them walk in, and then you don't really know what's going on because we're 3 hours away. As soon as checkout day came and he swept my outside front stairs, I was like, all right, this is going to be good. And sure enough, got a great review. He left us a little card, and that was fine. So, but at that point, I think a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. So, I would just kind of write a plan. Like, if this happens, then what? And if
Mm,
this other thing happens, then what? And what number do you want to get to? And what time frame do you want to get there? And if you do that, I should have been researching software at the beginning. I should have been doing my homework, going on those things when I didn't have the responsibility of growing like I'm growing now. I should have done a lot of the stuff I do is in my brain. Like, what do I do daily? At that point, it was like, I enter guest codes into my Slage locks. I don't use the locks that are tied to Airbnb yet. I know they're out there, but I haven't done it yet. So I keep using the same exact lock.
mm,
So that's a manual, system that we're going to have to eventually figure out.
right.
So yeah, I would just kind of plan for what you want your end game to be
Mm.
at the beginning.
And I mean, you're an avid listener of the show. You've been following, but so you've listened to quite the gamut of definitely some real professionals. But what would you ask the next professional host about, like where you are right now, or where you're planning on going?
Yeah, I had this answer in my head because I thought about it because I listen to your show every time and I knew you were going to ask this question. But it's really like you know, at 11 units, which we're at now, what does the game look like the next 11 and then 50? And what if they could kind of tell me like, all right, what's gonna need to change, what can stay the same, and what you just have to tweak. I think that's in my mind what I'm wrestling with.
Mhm. And what is, I mean, you got a lot on your plate right now, but what is short term renting allowed you to do? I mean, it gave you a lot more work, but is it has it done anything else for you?
Well, I completely love it. So when you love what you do, you don't work. I wake up, I think about it. I go throughout my day, I think about it, and I go to sleep thinking about it. And yesterday, for example, I worked my job and I came home. I went over to a property because I wanted to get it listed last night. So me and the team leader met over there. We cleaned it. We set it, staged it for pictures. We took pictures. We installed the ring. We installed the lock. We did everything we could. I got home. I built the listing on Airbnb because it's never been listed before. I connected it to all my software. And by 8:30, 8:45, I was still on my laptop in front of the TV looking at it to make sure it was perfect. And I woke up today pulled it up first thing I did because I wanted to make sure it looked right. I actually changed pictures this morning, changed the main picture. And you might sit there and think, well, that's, man, I don't want to do all that work. And I'll be honest, I don't want to build something that makes me 24/7. I've been 24/7 my whole life. My business that I was involved in, I've never had weekends off. And I look at that honestly as not a negative, but a positive, because I don't want to ski on the weekends because it's too busy. I don't want to go out to eat on the weekends because it's too busy. So that's not a negative to me. It's a positive. But I don't want to build something that consumes me. I'm fine with being consumed with it now because I love it and I'm building a company. But at some point, I want to go ski. I want to go hike in the mountains and not have cell service and not stress about a guest that has a leaky faucet or whatever. So I think the next iteration of what I do over the next probably 6 months is build this and work on how to build this where they don't need me. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. I just want to say, appreciate you so much, Peter. I think it's really exciting. And I think like what you said, you're a real guy, and everybody that's been on the show is definitely real. It's just some of the stories, like when we listen to people like Julie or like Alvin or John, you hear these numbers and you're just like, holy cow, like, is this like a real, I can't imagine running 100 properties. I can't imagine, scaling to 24 and 18 months. I can't imagine these things. And those are some of the negative false beliefs that a lot of us start to think like, oh, that's just somebody else. That's not me.
Yeah.
But I mean, what would you have to say to that mindset, to that thinking? Because you're right there. I mean, you just started, and you've been listening to the show, but now you're seeing this success. What would you say to those thoughts or those feelings if maybe someone is feeling like there's a disconnect from what these people are able to achieve?
Yeah, I don't think any of us are special by any means, and I think you got to listen to the short term podcast, every single day. I don't think I missed a day of listening to your podcast or going on your Facebook page. I haven't been on Facebook in a while because it's been too much of a distraction. But feed your mind with positives. I listened to this podcast called The One Thing. I don't know if you ever listened to it before, but in that podcast, he talked to this guy who I think he lost $100 million. It was some big astronomical number that he lost because it was a land deal that went bad. But in there, he talked about the positive that came out of that was that he learned that if he would have just done this one thing, he would have probably saved himself millions. And he's now come full circle and he's a millionaire again. But his one thing was to spend the first 30 minutes of your day having quiet time, sitting down and kind of asking what you want your business to look like with a blank piece of paper and just write your thoughts down. No phone, no computer, 30 to 45 minutes. And I started doing that. And it seemed almost like that's what that at that same moment is when my business exploded. I don't know if there's connection or not. So I would just tell people, wipe out your negative thoughts, although that's really hard. We all have them. I'm an old guy. I still have them. But feed your mind with the positives. That's why I remember me and you talked a long time ago. And I was like, I really love your success story podcast because I want to hear that. I want to know that I can do that. And I will say that anyone can do this. Anyone. I don't care what your skill set is. I don't care if you have no money, but you have to put work in. It's not like you're going to get rich quick. And that's, I think, what stops a lot of people. You have to put the work in. What is the work? The work is listening to guys like you, going on, grabbing as much information from you and John that they can. If and I'm willing to, you have to be willing to spend a little money on your education. I don't think people like to hear that either, but it's true. Now, you can go, it'll drop your time frame, it'll drop your time frame to success if you invest a little bit in education. Think about college, right? You don't have to spend $100,000 to go to school like my daughter did. You can spend a very small fraction or do it for nothing, but get the knowledge you need to get. That's what's important.
Oh, thank you so much, Peter, for jumping on here. I'm super humbled that you kind of were a part of the community in the beginning, and now to be able to see you grow and blossom, I just think I'm really eager for your success, and we'll definitely be reaching out to you when I if I am planning on going to the area, or just to even just have you back on the show in the future, because right now it's a very pivotal moment for you. You're at that crux where it's like you're going from just a couple properties to where now it's like you're building a team and you have a management company and you're taking on these clients. So really excited to see where you're going to grow from here.
Yeah, I really feel blessed to be a part of your community and to be on this show. It's so surreal, and I can't thank you enough. I think everything that we've had for success, I can trace back to you and your podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Peter. And until next time, Host Nation, keep on hosting. Hope you hosts benefited from the show. If you found value, please go on over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let us know what you enjoy about the show. If you'd like to talk to hosts that have been featured in these episodes as well as the community, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation.